Right, you. Okay, guys. So let's talk about, let's kind of can everyone hear me okay and see me okay? Yeah, okay. So let's just talk about what we discussed then. And with each session, each area, I want to talk about you to connect to the why firstly. So firstly, why is it important for us to look after, try and boost our energy, look after our body, our physical health? It's very important to be aligned with the why and have the mindset first before we share tips, because a lot of us know what to do, but the issue is being motivated to do it, right? So let's just take a minute with each area to realign our motivations as well. So why is it important to look after our body, physical health, energy? Like, what impact will that have on us? So again, people can either take the mic or just share in the chat and share some comments, or take the mic.
I think some sisters in my group, mashallah, were sharing some points. And if you don't mind taking the mic, go for it. They really honed in on the emotional part, and the fact that they didn't realize emotion is part of that well-being. Okay, you've got the physical, you've got the mental, but the emotion. So that was really interesting discussion that the sister was having in my group.
Great, excellent. Yeah, absolutely. They all impact each other. So why do we need to look after our body, physical energy? Well, obviously our body is an amana, like our body is a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's important that we look after our bodies. If I give this metaphor, that if your dad, who you love very much, gave you a car, but and it was a beautiful car, and he said, okay, this is your car, I'm giving it to you as a gift, but you only have one car your whole life. How well would you look after that car? You wouldn't feed it the wrong fuel, would you? You'd give it the right fuel. You'd look after it, make sure it's getting that servicing. It's the same with our body. It's a gift from Allah, and we just need to make sure that we're giving it the right servicing and giving it the right fuel, and that will impact everything else. And increased energy then will lead to greater productivity and improved mental and emotional well-being too, because they're all linked. And also it's about having more energy. If we have more energy, that's the first step towards then being able to do our ibadah in the best way, inshallah, because we should do our ibadah with ihsan, with excellence, and also doing good deeds. If we, people who I see as a GP all the time, people struggling with their health, they're so consumed with that, then they don't have time, or they're in so much pain, they can't do the good deeds. They can't go out there and try and build up all those Jannah points that, so that's why, if we want to be productive, if we want to, do lots of good, inshallah, it's important firstly we look after our bodies. So in terms of, some suggestions, tips, I mean, again, there's so much to talk about in this area, but just a few things, is obviously firstly, that having that correct fuel, like I mentioned, is so important for our bodies, having that right nutrition and aiming for a healthy BMI, because our bodies are designed to carry so much weight, and if we're putting more weight on it than they've got designed to do, more weight on the skeletal structure, it's obviously going to have an impact. And we're going to feel sluggish, etc. So especially in going more practically, the green veg, inshallah, having the especially the green leafy veg like spinach, avocado, broccoli, oily fish. These foods are not only good for the physical body, but also the brain. It's important to look after, obviously, give the brain the right nutrition. Lean protein, blueberries are especially highlighted as being very beneficial with antioxidants. Eggs, walnuts, turmeric, honey. These are specific foods that have much nutritional benefit, and it's about that less sugar and refined carbohydrates, because although those give us energy, but they don't give us so much nutrition. Also, fasting has been shown to have a lot of benefits in terms of actually boosting your energy. Subhanallah, like this is research relatively recent in the past 10-20 years that's showing us that fasting can be very good. The ketone bodies, etc., are good for, especially good for good energy for the brain. There's lots of benefits coming out of intermittent fasting as well as the Prophet ﷺ always showed that all along. It's a sunnah to fast Monday and Thursday. Drinking plenty of water as well, obviously, is needed for your brain and body. Our cells are majority water, so we need to have that. And I've worked with people, just a small thing of increasing their water intake, making a habit to drink more water, causes dramatic increases in their energy. Of course, daily movement as well is important, and weekly strength training. If you're going to exercise, if you can only have a little bit of time for exercise, I'd say look at the strength training as well. Occasional hot bath as well. Somebody mentioned at the beginning, it relax, especially in winter, it relaxes the muscles. It's good, good kind of relaxation. Also, 8 hours sleep a night obviously is very benefits of sleep. Again, lots of research into the benefits of sleep for our body. It's not just having a rest. It's literally a recharge for our whole body. Our brain is replenishing. Our memories are going into deeper storage. So sleep is so important. Another tip for winter as well: morning walk in the sun. So important, especially getting that limited vitamin D in. And getting moving first thing in the morning, it's shown to be helpful for sleep as well. Also, because vitamin D as well, because there's less sun in the winter, and obviously there's a lot of research showing that people from kind of Asian people with pigmented skin background, basically better for them to take a vitamin D supplement all year round, really. So taking sort of at least 10 micrograms a day is a very good habit to get into for your bones, your teeth, your muscles. People with vitamin D deficiencies, we see that they have achy muscles and joints and things like that. And the other thing as well, as I would say for body physical energy, is like, doing some regular deep breathing when you're stressed is really, or in pain, is really, really helpful, because what it does is it counters the stress mechanism. We have a fight or flight response in our body when we're stressed. And what deep breathing does is it activates the parasympathetic nervous system, so that reaction in our body is counteracted. And we want to challenge that. We want to avoid our body being in a state of chronic stress, because as we know, chronic stress then leads to literally physical. It's not just harmful for your mental health, but for your body as well, because when you're in a state of chronic stress hormones being released, it leads to literally inflammation in your body, which leads to cardiovascular disease, diabetes, all sorts of health problems. So much to say there, but those are just a few ideas, guys. So just think about
Hafsa, just to sorry to break your point there. There's a question in the chat. Is there any good vitamin D or multivitamin recommendations?
No, any vitamin D, just go to the pharmacy, and any vitamin D is better than, I wouldn't say one is better than the other. Even there's no brand better than the other, as long as it's vitamin D. Like shop brand, if they sell, is absolutely fine as well.
Yep, and as a pharmacist, I'll just I reiterate that as well. As long as the strength of the vitamin D is sufficient.
Excellent. So let's talk about emotions then. Why is it important to look after your emotional well-being? Again, if you guys can put things in the chat, that would be great.
I think Sabit has recommended a certain brand for multi-buys, so we can all check that out, inshallah.
And also think about your think about your kids as well, like giving them a a multivitamin as well. It's really good. So yeah, moving on to kind of emotions, why is it important to look after our emotional health? Making sure that if we're getting a bit, that we have tools to, like, when we're getting angry, we know what to do. When we're getting upset, when we're getting stressed, like just kind of being able to calm ourselves down and regulate. Like, why is that important?
Sisters mentioned mood swings.
Yeah, I was going to say that I think that your emotions tie into being able to complete your daily tasks, which is part of my job, is to support people completing their daily tasks as well as they can. So if you're going through a seasonal depression or a depression, any mental health, your mental health is impacting you negatively, then it's really hard to even sometimes get out of bed, I would say.
Yes.
So it's good to reconnect with your emotions, reflect on yourself. And I would say a good way to do that is salah, eating well, going outside does help, even though it's really cold, and spending time with the people that you love.
Absolutely. Excellent. Great point, Sister Ella. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing. I've got some comments here. Helps with a healthy relationship with yourself and others around you. Regulate stress, emotions linked to physical. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, excellent. Yeah, and then it's good mental health. Yeah, so they're all linked, as I say, but slightly different, but all linked. Yeah, Excellent. So let me
And
talk about,
sorry,
go ahead, Sister Saida.
hi. So other thing I was thinking as well, I mean, my concept is that if you're emotionally strong, then it also impacts on your family members as well. Then they feel strong as well. So emotionally, if you're unstable, then that means that this is like it's a burden on your mental health, and obviously you can't really function a lot. So that
Absolutely.
is going to affect all of your family members.
It's so true. If
So
you're down, if you're
yeah,
angry, it's going to affect the whole mood of the house, not just you. Like
it's
you
not
might be
only
fine,
you.
as in
Yes.
your family members might come
Yeah.
home fine, but if you're down and you're kind of in a mood, and then they see you, then their mood gets affected as
Yes.
well. So
It's
yeah,
like it's like a vicious cycle, because it is
it is.
emotions are kind of contagious, because
Yeah,
you're down, the other person will get that as well. So your mood is on the same other side. If your mood is elated, then they get energy from you, and they feel
absolutely.
strong. So for a
You
mother
mirror each
to
other. Yeah.
be emotionally strong, it is very important.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah. So these are again
Yeah.
some thoughts I listed that, we want to be in that, aim to be in that default state, inshallah, of peace and gratitude, like just kind of being calm, peaceful. That's what we're going for, inshallah. And when you're in a good emotional state as well, I would say you see things as they really are. Whereas if you're kind of angry or sad, I think you can see things in the lens of that anger and sadness. You can get a little bit more, like you can lose perspective basically. So, and yeah, if you're emotionally dysregulated, so when I say that, I mean, like, you're angry, you're kind of upset, you're stressed, you're more likely to snap at others, you're less able to concentrate, focus, and make decisions. There's evidence, you're literally, your rational brain, when you're very heightened emotionally, your rational brain, your prefrontal cortex, it's almost like it switches off. It also, just think of, it sucks up so much time and physical energy as well. If you're in a poor emotional state, it sucks up your time, because you end up kind of languishing around, not really doing stuff because you're just stuck being in a low mood. You're not being so productive. It's sucking up your energy as well. You're less productive, less able to give to others as well if you're in that low emotional state. And it literally can it can impact our actions, in that we take the wrong action, or we end up kind of not taking action because we're procrastinating, or we're so anxious about something that we then don't take the action, etc. So emotions often impact our actions. So again, some tips then on how can we regulate our emotions. So again, I want to hear from you guys first. Sister Ella already shared some ideas. What about you guys? Like, what do you do to regulate your emotions?
I think I would say that being Muslim, we are blessed to say that we can always connect to Allah straight away.
Subhanallah,
And
yeah.
even if you are not saying your prayers the days you have got monthly cycles, then we have got this, that we can do a
Absolutely.
star, we can do we can do either recitation, or we can listen to the Quran, so through a lot of sources we have got. So that is where you can get your strength emotionally. And once
Absolutely.
you're done with that, then you can go back to the routine, the normal routine. As a normal person, you can function much better. So I think
Fantastic.
that's a very shortcut for being a Muslim. We are
Yeah.
privileged with that.
Absolutely. Whenever I'm a bit feeling a bit stressed, going and reading some Quran often helps you, elevates you,
Yes,
and kind of come out of that bad emotional state. If
exactly. So
somebody's
that's like we have got that, like our moment, our time when we are out of that, stressful environment. Go connect to Allah. You get you're on the right path. So Allah gives you Sirat al-Mustaqim, and you come and then start with your normal
yes.
routine life.
Absolutely. And that's why what I said as well, that spiritual health and emotional
Mm.
health, they're so linked, subhanallah.
And I think the highest ranking should be the spiritual side, and then you, just like the very first slide you had, and then you break it down to emotional, mental, physical, and all that. But if you're spiritually strong, you're connected to Allah, then that's the
yeah.
key you have got.
Absolutely. So we've got some other suggestions. Take a breath, deep breaths, relaxation, distraction techniques, journaling, mindfulness, reframing thoughts, okay, It's not always easy to control emotions. Yeah, absolutely. It's not always easy at all. Sometimes, yeah, there's nothing let me go into some of the ideas I had as well, inshallah. So yeah, so just a few thoughts. So the first thing I wanted to say is I think, like somebody said, it's not easy to control your emotions all the time. So what is important to do is not to kind of repress them. If really feeling emotionally overwhelmed, it's important to process them rather than kind of repressing them or fearing them or being like, why am I sad? Why am I? Because what happens is if you then feel angry at yourself for feeling angry, or feel angry at yourself for feeling sad, it can often compound the negative emotion. So instead, if you're feeling that strong emotion, it's often good to kind of accept that, okay, I'm feeling angry right now, I'm feeling upset right now, and just allow yourself to feel with it. And what a little tool I have is just to zoning off what are emotions. They're a physical almost reaction to the thoughts going on in our mind, and we label it that as an emotion. So if I say, how do you know you're happy? Well, it's a feeling in your body. It's like a physical almost feeling, in your body, right? So tune into that though, like where are you feeling it in your body, and just stay with it. And often if you zone in on it, just focus on the physical feeling, often the intensity of that emotion will kind of just gradually pass. That's what I call the peace process. It'll just zoning in on that emotion, just staying with it for a little while, the intensity will often pass.
Sorry, Sister Hafsa, I didn't get very well the meaning of repressing negative emotions. What do you mean? Like don't stress?
What I mean is, if you're feeling angry, like not sort of being in denial about your emotions as well.
Okay, I see what you
like
mean.
accept that, okay, I'm feeling
and,
angry right now, I'm feeling sad right now, I'm feeling whatever, like accept it, and then just maybe right. So this is a tool as well. Often when we're angry, we're not self-aware of our emotions, and then we lash out at others and we start getting angry with others or whatever, or we start blaming other people. But we need to become aware, okay, what am I feeling right now? Maybe label it, and just allow yourself to just take a minute or two, like this is suggested, just to kind of process it, inshallah. That can often help. A few other tips.
So can I interrupt? I think sometimes as well, when you have a role as a mother, and you're that person that people go to for like to offload emotionally, can be quite burdening when you don't have that same reciprocated on the other end, because people just expect you to be strong all the time, and they expect you to be like because the mum is the home type of thing. So it's really hard, I think, for some women, and they end up repressing their emotions. So I guess this is where you come in for advice on how to exactly offload, and I guess as a type of self-care to talk to someone, or offload in your salah, or whatever strategy that people use.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Having that support system in place with our emotions, sometimes having someone to help us process our emotions, a good listener, a good friend or mentor, somebody to help us, that can be very, very powerful as well, to process that emotion. And as I'll move on to talking, often it's a thought that is behind the emotion. So processing that thought will lead to, often we can't process the emotion directly sometimes. This peace process is a good one, but often if we challenge the thought, that will help. So yeah, just a few, as I say, just to quickly run through a few tips here. So the other thing as well is, as I say, it's often the thoughts that lead to that feeling. Like, when you're off, I'm sure many of you can relate to this. Like if you're feeling, I don't know, angry at someone in your family, then you start having all these thoughts about them, and all these negative, everything they've ever done in the past negative comes up, and it like compounds that anger, right? And they did this, and they don't even do this, and they don't even do this. And so sometimes when we're getting into that state, avoid just saying, okay, I'm overthinking it here. I'm just going to stop this, what I call a thought storm. And I'm just going to, take a breath and take a break. That can help. So avoid overthinking. And especially what I'll say as well, avoid arguing with others when you're in that angry or emotional state, or over communicating, because if you do that, if you often if you're saying an angry or upset state, and then you communicate with others in a unhealthy way, as it were, and you're saying, especially if you're in some sort of argument, then often the emotions get even more heightened, if that makes sense. And you can say things you'll regret, and you can end up in a worse emotional state, even worse than if you just sort of noticed it at the beginning. Oh, I'm angry, I better take a breath. If you keep going, the argument can get worse. So avoid doing that. I would say as well, avoid big decisions and acting out when dysregulated, as I say, because it can make it worse. The other thing is, know that the emotions will pass. Emotions are a fluctuating thing. They'll come and go. Feelings, they're always coming and going. So as somebody mentioned, that sometimes helps to distract yourself to avoid that overthinking. That's why the Prophet ﷺ, for example, he recommended doing wudu or changing your posture when angry. He said, if you're standing, then sit down. If you're sitting, lie down. So the Prophet ﷺ was aware of this, that sometimes it's about distracting, changing your posture, changing your state can help then change your what you're focusing on, and therefore change your emotional state as well. Just know that as I say, it's always emotions are caused by what's going on in your mind in that moment. That's why, again, mental and emotional health are linked. I like to see emotions as kind of like a chemical cocktail in our body, that we label it as emotion, but it's like a messenger between our conscious and subconscious mind. We're not always aware of what's going on in our mind, but it's kind of less like a thing. Like when we feel anxious, it's a warning signal that, oh, this might be a bit of an uncomfortable situation, or this might be this thing happen, and that you're feeling sad, like it's something maybe bad that happened. So it's kind of giving us a signal. But sometimes, it's useful to kind of just recognize that emotions are kind of a tool for navigating life, just as pain receptors are a tool for navigating the physical environment, that we don't get harmed. So emotions are tools, but don't let them control, use them to, as a tool, but don't let them control you, basically. And kind of challenging the thoughts sometimes, if we're getting swept up in a thought storm, just saying, like, sometimes we get thought, especially as mums, we get caught up in a lot of mum guilt and in a lot of like, I'm not good enough. And sometimes you just need to, and that then makes you feel low, or there's no hope, especially, and in winter, it can just be thoughts about, oh, the weather's so rubbish. And so just kind of challenging those thoughts again can help improve our emotional state, inshallah. And as the sister said, like connecting our thoughts back to Allah as much as possible really helps with our emotions. Connecting to an empathetic loved one as well, who's a good listener. Even having a hug, that can help when we're down emotionally. And also deep breathing as well is another tool for helping clear the mind and regulate some of those physical feelings associated with heightened emotion. Okay, so
before you move on, there's a question in the chat. It says, when does a person know that they need extra help, for example, for depression or anxiety?
I think it's always good, if you're feeling low, to go and talk to someone. So sometimes your doctor, I think, like if you're persistently in that low state of depression, anxiety, like low mood, anxiety, I think that if you and you try some of these tools and they don't, they're not quite getting you out of that state, then I think get help sooner rather than later. Don't hesitate to get help.
It's useful to know that there are Muslim counselors out there as well. So seeking Muslim counselors could be good, as they help to balance faith as well as your health. Yeah,
absolutely.
Can I just add to that as well? I think that recognizing that you are at a place where you feel that you do need extra support than what you're receiving, I think that should be the first sign where you do need help, and not ignoring that.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's move on to sort of the as we've said, they're all linked, but kind of the mental domain, the thoughts, mindsets. Again, why is it important to kind of, really be aware of our thoughts and work on our mental health, work on our mindsets, work on, what we're carrying in our mind, and be aware of that? Why? What are your guys' ideas on that? Why is it important to, work on your mental health?
Well, I think your mental health directly links to your physical, spiritual health. It's all this big circle, these things.
Yeah.
And they all link with each other. Not one is not more important than the other. If your mental health is bad, then your spiritual health and physical health and emotional health will be bad. So I think it's quite important as well, because you know, there's many times where I come across people that aren't able to do simple tasks because their mental health is not where they feel like it should be in a positive way.
Fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And I think negative thoughts are basically, if we see, they are waswasa basically.
Mm-hmm.
And waswasa can lead you, you know, like it's a downhill. Then once that comes in your head, then it's not stopping. And this is how, you know, like we can just deteriorate. So I think having positive thoughts, on the other hand, is very important to stay with such people. Sorry, Wanda, to stay with such people who can, you know, allay your thoughts and all that. I think that's why it has a crucial role. Just like sister said, that it plays a important role for your mental health, and so thoughts, they play vital role basically in having good mental health.
Fantastic. Yep. Thank you so much for sharing. Gives you the ability to have gratitude. Great, great.
I think it also is, sorry, something like you're catastrophizing something, isn't it? Which sort of constrains yourself sometimes, because you're sort of thinking, oh my God, you know, this is how it's going to happen, and it's all going to go wrong. It's all going to go wrong, and somehow you never take off the task, and then eventually you end up doing the task, and you're like, oh my God, I was just thinking this for no reason.
Yes,
So,
absolutely. It's important to learn to be able to be aware of the thoughts so that we can like challenge the thoughts that are not helpful and like run with the ones that are helpful, basically. Yeah, absolutely. So let's just again, a few just points that I've got here. So yeah, why do we have to protect our mind? Is because our mind is one of our most precious, is probably one of the most precious asset. Our mind is what distinguishes us from other animals, basically, isn't it? Essentially, like the intellect that Allah has given us, and the mind capacity, and you know, it's just mind-blowing what we can, you know, what we can do with our mind, the ability to learn and the ability to think creatively. The other thing I'll say is, if you have the right mindsets and the right kind of what I call mental models, so if you have the right like kind of blueprint in your mind of how to go about doing something, it becomes a lot easier to then take action. So for example, if you know you know, a lot of us can sort of go, I don't know, just to take something like losing weight. If you know exactly step by step how to go about losing that weight, you know, in a very clear path, having that right mental model, it makes the actual taking the action less overwhelming and easier. If you have the right mental models around parenting, for example, and the right mindsets around parenting, then actually being the great parent we all want to be becomes a lot easier, taking that right action. Otherwise, we're shooting in the dark. So that's why it's important to have the right kind of mindsets and mental models. Also, because as we mentioned before, our feelings or emotions in any given moment are coming from our mind in that moment. They're coming from what's going on in our mind in that moment, not from outside circumstances. For example, if you felt sad at the death of a loved one, you know, which is one of the most emotional incidences that can go on in a life. But even in that moment, maybe when they've passed away recently, in any given moment, you might feel upset, or you might feel angry, or you might feel nothing because you're talking to someone, you're not even thinking about the fact that they passed away, you're busy arranging the funeral. So you can experience a spectrum of emotions, even though it, you know, in that moment, you know, the circumstance hasn't changed, that person is gone. So that is proof that our feelings and emotions are actually coming from what's going on in our mind in that very moment. And they're always fluctuating. So it's important to kind of be aware of the thoughts and regulate those thoughts. The other thing I would say is that we can only really think about one or two things at a time. In any given moment, we can only think about one or two things. So if our mind is full of insecure thinking, like I'm not good enough, or you're just thinking about what happened in the past and like this grudge you have against someone, if you're, you know, and you're busy just worrying about the future, like, you know, full of what if thinking, what if this happens, what if that happens, but it's not like any kind of concrete thing. And then basically, if your mind is full of these things, or catastrophizing, as the sister said, then you don't have, your mind is so full of those things that then you don't have space for creative thinking or grateful thinking, which are things that are going to maybe help with your career or help with your, you know, just overall connection to Allah and your state. So you know, when you're in a, as I say, when you have a clear mind and our mind is clear of unhelpful thinking, it leads to greater productivity and greater connection with Allah, inshallah. So we need to be that self-aware of what's the thoughts going through our mind. And sometimes those thoughts are perceived as words or a dialogue, sometimes more just images in our mind. But overall, those thoughts, we need to be conscious of them. And we need to also basically, we can to a degree choose what we choose to think on. Like you can just be, it's not always easy, but you can be like, realize that, oh, I'm going off here and I'm catastrophizing in my mind. And I'm just going to stop and I'm going to just go and think about something else. I'm just going to have a break from this and go and think about something else. So in terms of the tips then, so how do we regulate our mind then? How do we actually upgrade our mindsets, and how do we learn to be self-aware of our thoughts, you know, and regulate what's going on in our mind? What are people's tips for that?
Volunteering.
Volunteering, yep, absolutely, absolutely.
Sometimes writing things down, or journaling sometimes helps as well.
Yep.
Or even reflecting, okay, this is the thought I had and this happened.
Yep.
Sometimes just sitting down and reflection.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely.
Being involved in different activities, I don't know, community activities.
Keeping your mind busy by being
exactly
activities, absolutely, absolutely. Avoiding the kind of the gossip and that kind of thing. So let's just go into a few things. So essentially some ideas here: fill your mind with the right stuff. So avoid news, avoid gossip, avoid harmful social media. That's just filling your mind with just rubbish, really. Instead, you want to fill your mind with, by reading books and useful books and beneficial knowledge and maybe learning helpful things. Basically filling your mind with the right stuff. And often, be aware of the news as well. That's the big one. If you think about the news, it's often full of depressing information. So, sometimes people can be addicted to the news, and it's not really helpful overall. The other thing to do to kind of help regulate your thoughts is reframing. So, you can choose to think, oh, winter's terrible, it's so cold, etc. Or like one of the sisters mentioned at the beginning, you can reframe to, what are the benefits of this? What are the benefits of winter? Like there's always a way to reframe something into a positive way, inshallah. You can choose, as I say, how you think. It's not the thing that is causing your thinking. The outside doesn't cause how we choose to think of it, but we can choose how we can think about any given circumstance, if that makes sense. Another thing that's helpful is a good thing that can help is having your vision in mind, like being aware of, well, what do I actually want in life? Regularly revisiting that, like just asking yourself, what do I want in life? Because we can, especially as busy Muslim women, we can just fall into the rat race of just we're living life on autopilot, just doing what other people are always telling us. Can you do this? Can you do that? Your kids are always have demands on you. Your family members have demands on you. So just pausing to think about, well, what do I want to do? What do I want to do this year? And regularly revisiting that, and keeping your mind busy, taking action towards that vision as well can really help. Another big thing is really having that inspiring right company, the right mentors, the right coaches, the right role models. That cannot be emphasized enough. Like even the Prophet ﷺ, he's highly encouraged good company. Why? Because that, without us even realizing it, it influences your mindset. The people we are around hugely influences the thoughts going on in our mind. If we're always with people who are always suspicious of others, or who are always gossiping or thinking worse of others, then we will fall into that as well. So, and on that point, I'll say, it's important that we do this inner work, so that, because often the anxieties we carry are anxieties that our parents often had as well, if you think about it. So important to work on this stuff so that we don't pass it on to our kids as well. Also, I would say, as somebody mentioned, having that giving mindset, like somebody mentioned volunteering. And that really helps. Like, asking yourself, how can I use my talents and resources to contribute to others? Because growth and contribution, and, always learning and developing yourself personally, and also contributing to others, they are, if you could say, what are the keys of fulfillment? They're probably two of the biggest keys of having a fulfilling life, when you feel like you've made a difference. And that's both within your family as well as outside of your family. Other things as well is be present in the moment. Don't let your mind be full of what's going past, future, etc. Just be present right here, right now. And if you think about it, most of the time, bad things aren't happening to you. You're just you're just neutral, or in a good things are happening, or you're in a safe environment. So just be present in the moment, rather than ruminating on the past or worrying about the future. That really helps with our mental health. I like to think as well, like, you can only worship Allah in this moment. Our purpose of life is to worship Allah with whatever we're doing. So if we're busy thinking about others, thinking about how other people have wronged us, thinking about, this bad thing happened to me, like, how is that worshiping Allah in that moment, right? So, clearing our mind and just being present in what we're doing right then, and being with whoever we're with right now is important. Again, deep breathing and mindfulness exercises. We don't have too much time to go into all of those right now, but just deep breathing. I love that one. Just being aware of your breath is so, like, think of the breath, like, you don't have to control your breathing. You breathe automatically, but Allah has given us that ability to control our breath. Just breathing in for 3, out for 6 does wonders to just clearing our mind, as well as the physical benefits I outlined earlier, and just clearing our mind of any kind of overwhelming thoughts. And I think the other thing, somebody's mentioned brain dump as well, like just journaling your thoughts when you're overwhelmed with thoughts, just writing them down, making a plan what to do next, planning to do things, avoiding multitasking as well, because often we feel overwhelmed in our mind if we just feel like we've just got loads of demands in us at the same time and we just can't do it properly. So avoid multitasking, try and plan to do one thing at a time. That really can help with mental health as well. I know, sorry guys, I'm going through like a lot of kind of content there, a lot of ideas, but hopefully it's just a good revision. And yeah, any questions, happy to take as well at the end. So those are some tips on your mental health. So finally, kind of the spirit, again, they're all linked, but in terms of improving your spirituality, connection, consciousness of Allah, again, why is that important? Why is that important? Take the mic, or, take right in the chat. It might sound like a silly question, but again, I'm wanting you guys to interact so you don't fall asleep. Aim for life, yeah. Allah is our final destination, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Jannah, yeah. So just go ahead, Sister Shahad. Hey, Shahad, go ahead. Why is it? Oh, Shahad, you're muted.
You're on mute. Yeah. I was just going to say, sometimes what a lot of us crave in life is to be able to be in control of what our situation. So I think, well, Assalamu alaikum, we've done a swap. Your mind left in the party. Assalamu alaikum. I was just going to say that we sort of want control, don't we, of things. When things are going wrong, we want to...
Oh, you've cut off again, Shahad. You've muted yourself.
Oh, sorry. I don't think it's my phone. I was just saying that we want control in our life, and I think that's caused a lot of stress. But I think when we remember Allah, we realise we're not in control. So our stress is, and our things that are worrying us, we can't control them. So just having that relationship with Allah just eases that stress automatically.
Yeah, yeah, beautiful. Exactly. And oh, lots of chats. Hope you guys don't mind my daughter joining. Sorry about that. By the way, happy to take some of the questions I'm seeing here at the end, inshallah. I'll go back through them. Main reason to worship Allah, being close to Allah, reflecting on Allah's name really helps. Yeah, excellent. Thank you, guys. So yeah, because it's the purpose of life. Connecting to Allah is literally the purpose of the life. This life is short. The real life is the hereafter. Apologies. Sorry. So the real life is the hereafter. And also, yeah, as Sister Shah mentioned, like, verily in the remembrance of Allah do hearts find rest. That same literally in like, so again, it's that emotional health there, and our mental health is very much, if we remember Allah, as one of the other sisters mentioned, it literally causes our hearts to have rest. Apologies of Safura joining here.
No, please leave her there.
Yeah, and also, yeah, Allah will not change the condition of a belief till they. So again, if we want a condition to change, it starts with that connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I like to call this idea the Sakina switch in my coachings, that the idea that if, again, if you, whatever trial you're going through, if you connect your thoughts back to Allah, and you remember things like Allah is the best of planners. Okay, things haven't gone to plan as I planned them, but Allah is the best of planners. And remembering, literally these come from ayahs of the Quran. In Surah Baqarah, it says Allah will not give you more than you can bear. When you remember that, whatever test you're going through, whatever difficulty, hardship, inshallah, it brings you back to that state of our default state of peace, inshallah. So some tips, how can we increase our spirituality? How can we increase our connection with Allah, our consciousness of Allah, inshallah? And again, this leads to better physical, emotional and mental health as well. So some people have already given ideas reflecting on the names of Allah. That's a great tip. Any other tips, guys? How can we increase our connection to Allah, our consciousness of Allah? That's $1 million question.
I think it is.
Just,
sorry.
Go ahead. You go ahead.
Sorry. Okay. I think sometimes we live in UK with lots of, we're blessed with lots of things in the UK. And sometimes it's just to be grateful for all the blessings. So sometimes we like simple things, like we can wash ourselves and we can do our self-care. Some people can't do that. Sometimes we get it tangled in a problem and we think we forget all the blessings. So sometimes just sit down and think of all the blessing we live in. And then I think that would help a lot to calm down.
Absolutely. Reflecting on the blessings. Absolutely. That's a great one. People have written reading Quran. Excellent. So just a few ideas here, guys, again. Obviously reading Quran, and especially reading Quran with translation, I think is really important. And I think doing that first thing in the morning, for me, I find that changing this practice, even if I read only 5 ayahs in the morning, but it just gets you grounded in the morning. You're reading Allah's word first thing. Just, it's just a really good practice, as I say, for your mental and emotional health, to fill your mind with, I said in the previous line, for improving your mental health, it's what you're filling your mind with. If you fill your mind, inshallah, with the words of Allah first thing, like what better thing can you do, inshallah? And even if you're busy, just reading 2 or 3 ayahs, you can do it. So we've got apps on our phone. It doesn't take a lot of time. Done is better than perfect. Also, listening to Quran and adhkar, that can really help with our spirituality. I think I adopt this practice of doing a detailed personal morning dua in the morning. Asking Allah for help with our top 5 goals and top 5 worries. So often when we do dua, we do it in a general sense. But if you actually, make it real for yourself by asking Allah each morning of your top, this kind of, for me, this kind of replaces the idea of vision boards and stuff, like actually asking Allah for help with our goals and with our challenges directly really, really helps connect to Allah first thing. Salah, obviously, with concentration, is a regular reminder. Again, connecting your goals to the words of Surah Fatiha. When we're saying, Ya Allah, show us the straight path, the path of those whom favored. Imagine your role models and imagine, try and make it visual and imagine what you're trying to achieve. Apologies for Safura here. Gratitude, it can really help, of course, as well. Especially doing it with your family, like if you going around the dining table or playing with your kids, even this game called gratitude tennis, where you all just say what you're grateful for that day. Just these small practices really overall help with your connection of Allah. Tadabbur as well, like reflecting on what you've learned each day, reflecting on the beauty of the universe, reflecting, basically taking that time to just think and reflect on what you've learned and what's been good about the day and what the beauty of Allah's creation. Good company and role models is again vital for our God. If you want to be more God conscious, hang out with the more God conscious. That's probably the easiest and best way. Like, find good company. It's so important. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam emphasized it for that reason. Gatherings of learning and praise, of course, visiting the masjid, etc. Attending, at least a regular, some sort of learning where you're learning something, related to the deen, I think is very, very important. And also always remembering your intentions and linking them back to Allah, because this is the beautiful thing in our deen, like the win-win, that, like sometimes we get down about things that we've, that haven't gone to plan, or we've not been successful. But again, if you make your intentions for the sake of Allah, then there's no losing, because innamal a'malu binniyat, the actions are judged by intentions. So remembering that really helps with our spiritual health. I just wanted to quickly just touch on seasonal affective disorder, because this was about winter well-being. So by the way, I hope you found those little tips useful there. We'll come back to them in a minute. But again, I just wanted to quickly touch on seasonal affective disorder. Just because we're talking about winter well-being, that basically seasonal affective disorder is what is referred to as a winter depression, low mood that's more apparent in winter. The theory is that a lack of sunlight and shorter days basically affects the kind of some hormones in our body like melatonin and serotonin, some chemicals, and that can kind of affects our circadian. The darkness can affect our circadian rhythm and sleep as well, leading to more issues of lack of vitamin D as well. But it's not fully understood why people are affected by this. And the symptoms are generally of depression, basically, but it's more in the winter. So depression is defined as persistent low mood lasting for more than 2 weeks consistently, loss of pleasure in things, feelings of despair and worthlessness, low energy, irritability, sleeping and eating too much or too little, difficulty concentrating. So again, if you feel that you might be struggling with any of those things, I would advise, implement some of the tips and strategies we've discussed here, like the morning walk, vitamin D supplement, meeting others, good company, even and things like that. But if you are struggling, always seek help, like see your GP in the first instance, inshallah. And I just want to finish with just saying the importance as well, because this is about well-being, that the importance of just that self-compassion, rejuvenating and doing one thing at a time, inshallah. Just the final message I just want to say is like, just be kind to yourself, because Allah is most merciful. Often we feel down because we're just very mean to ourselves. We have high expectations of ourselves, and when we don't meet them, we're very harsh to ourselves. So sorry about that. You can't pour from empty vessels. So it's not, you don't feel guilty about taking time out of yourself. Okay, guys, I'll leave it. Sorry about that. I'm going to come back to that slide, but what I'll do is I'm just going to pass the floor on to Dad. And in the meantime, I will get you to just think about some of these questions.
Hafsa, do you want to take 10 minutes?
So sorry about that, guys.
Did you want to take 10 minutes, Hafsa?
No, I'm good. Dad's taking
sure?
Okay. Sorry about that, guys. I just wanted to finish by saying, you don't feel guilty, basically. You have to look after yourselves in order to look after your family members, everybody. So make sure you take time for rejuvenation. And rejuvenation is doing, fun things that will energize you. You do them, and we have two elements of that, doing things alone and doing things as well with others. But pay attention to both. That's me time is important. And also, but rejuvenation can be the time you spend in company with others, with your children, as long as it's time when you're nice and relax, inshallah. And the sharpen the saw analogy is, again, instead of keep going with a blunt saw, if you try and cut down trees, it'll take ages. Whereas if you sharpen the saw, then it cuts much faster. So same thing, if you look after yourself, you'll get, take that time for rejuvenation. You'll be able to get everything else done, all your roles and responsibilities a lot more easier, inshallah. So guys, apologies, I sincerely apologize for my daughter that I hope she didn't disturb you guys too much. But yeah, as I say, I wanted you guys to take away from this session, it's nice to have a chat, get together, but also just think about, just having a little think about when can you actually do. Amna, do we have time for breakout rooms, or should we just give people time to just think about these questions and put in the chat?
I think it would be good to have a bigger discussion.
Yeah. So I want everybody to, just actually write these down if you can, like, just think about these things. When can you actually go for a walk outdoors? If not daily, then weekly. Like, when can you maybe implement that? When can you connect one-on-one daily with your family members? When can you buy and take a but think about it in as much detail, visualize it. You're more likely to do in reality what you visualize yourself doing. So when can you, when's the best time for you to take when can you go buy a multivitamin, vitamin D? When's the best time to take it? Is it with your morning coffee? Is it in the evening with your dinner? Just think about that for you. When can you read at least 5 ayahs of Quran daily with translation? When can you write out your detailed personal goals and worries and start doing them in a dua form every day? When can you learn something a little bit every day? Just learning something. When can, at least in a week, learning something new once a week really helps with well-being. And, when can you maybe contribute to others, volunteer on a weekly basis as well? So these are some of the ideas we talked about. But when it's about implementing it, right? So when can you actually do those things, inshallah? So take that time just to kind of write out those things, inshallah. I'll come back to that side. Well, just a couple of things I wanted to say. Yeah, I just wanted to say as well, people have been asking,